Thank you so much everyone for joining. This is day 23rd of Oracle integration training, and in this session we will learn about creating the integration which will be responsible for getting the file from file server, and it will load the file data into Oracle Fusion. So while doing that transactions, we will perform a purchase order creation in Oracle ERP. So from the file server, we will get the purchase order data, and that purchase order data we will load into that Oracle Fusion application using the SOAP web services. And in previous sessions, we already discussed that how to create purchase order from front end, just to verify that all the setups related to purchase order for your user is completed or not. So that once everything will be done, you can utilize the same steps and the same information using web services to create purchase order. And then after we got to know that how to find that web services or APIs for the purchase order, and then we prepare the request payload and we created purchase order using web services. So the same thing we will use today for our OIC. So before going to start working on integration, just let me brief on the requirement. So the requirement is we will get data from file server, and from the file server we have to load data into Oracle Fusion. So what kind of data we are going to use? So it can be possible while working on project, they will not provide you list of data directly. They will ask you to tell the client that how many columns you require to create purchase order. So for that, again, like you already prepare a request payload which will be responsible for creating the purchase order. So here you can see, by the way, that's why that POC comes in the picture. So first you will do POC to create purchase order from front end. By the way, you will get to know that which all columns required to create purchase order and all. And obvious, for creating the purchase order you will require a few data, few information. So that's why that information will be provided to you by the functional team member who will there in the team. So for example, here for creating the purchase order I used US1 business unit. So in your project, which business unit you have to use, which supplier you have to use, what user you will use, what will be the items for that purchase order, all these things just for simple purpose you will ask to the functional, they will provide you the input. So based on that you will create purchase order. And even it can be possible that if obviously it can be depend on the project to project, so you can ask directly to the functional team. So do one thing, create any purchase order in front end in Fusion application and share me the purchase order number. I will go and I will check which all columns we need. So even, by the way, you will just search the purchase order using web services or from front end, you will get to know all the columns. And or you will just tell them that this all are the mandatory columns we have required while creating the purchase order. Now this is list of column here. For example, I created the mapping sheet. So this is the mapping sheet will be your base while developing the integration. So this mapping sheet will be defined or designed by the functional team, provided all the inputs to you. And either it can be that if you are in a small organization, so like in that one, so everything will be like they will ask you to do only. So what you will do, whenever you will get a requirement, you will have a discussion. For example, in our requirement, our discussion is that we have to get file from file server. That file will contain purchase order data. That purchase order data we have to load into Oracle Fusion. So now first question is what you will ask. So what is the file server directory, what is the connectivity and all. For example, they given you the directory and the connectivity for file server. After, and even you have the file at file server. Now your questions will be that how many columns you want to load into Oracle purchase order. Oracle purchase order, it means that, just I'm going to show you that one. So here you can see this is the purchase order screen. In the purchase order screen, which all columns business want to reflect while in from integrations, right? So they will tell you, or you can just share this screen and you can ask that tell me which all columns you want. So they will provide you list of columns. So not business directly will provide you, you as a technical developer and the business user, both, between both there is one more person is there, that's functional. He will provide you the input by taking from the business. So they will tell you that okay, so procurement BU will be there, requisition BU will be there, sold to legal you have to use, bill to BU you have to use, and what will be the value for that, from where you will extract. It can be possible that they will tell you that use the procurement BU as US1, and based on the procurement BU you have to pick the same requisition BU, or based on the requisition BU you have to select the legal entity, you have to select the bill to BU, you have to select the supplier, use Calvin Roth for US1 business unit, use this another user for another business unit. That kind of things will comes under the mapping only. So once you will get to know all the requirement, right, all the required information, all the required mapping, so before starting your integration development you will design a mapping sheet. You or functional team will design and give it to you. So the mapping sheet will define you which all columns you have to populate in Oracle Fusion. So here you can see when we last session, right, we created purchase order using SOAP web services, and while creating the purchase order using SOAP web services, we list down few columns which was mandatory. So here you can see these all columns were the mandatory to create purchase order. So what I have done, I just taken all the columns from here and added in the mapping sheet. So now I ask him that all these columns are mandatory to create purchase order, except that if you want any additional column, tell me that column, I will add in the mapping sheet. Otherwise, this all other column, just provide me the mapping for this column. So mapping for this column, it means that this document style is fusion column, right? So from the source data, which column from source data will be mapped to this your target column, your APIs column or the purchase order column, right? So that's why this mapping comes in the picture, and this mapping say that the first column, that is document style, which we have to use in SOAP web services. You can see document style. This document style will always be hard coded value as a purchase order. You will get to know this point, right? So that's why this document is there. So same way, second one, you can see the procurement view. They are saying that for procurement view there will be one column named purchase underscore bu, and it will be in your data files, data file column. So based on that you prepare this payload. So you can see, and sample value, you always you will ask sample values for one transaction, so that using these sample values you will be able to create transaction in Fusion front end. Then you will use your API to create same, create transaction with the same value using API, so that you will get to know your configuration, your that sample data what you got is perfectly fine, and you will develop integration based on the sample values. And once your integration will be working fine, it means that if they will pass user as this one for this business unit, based on whatever logic they will explain, your integration will be able to perform operations, right? So that's you have to do. So here you can see, based on that, based on connecting with the functional, we got to know about the mappings for all the column. Here you can see for PO lines, we have PO underscore lines column in that our source file. For this schedule number, so they said that always schedule number will be one for each and every invoice, for each and every purchase order, and again distribution number will also be one for each and every invoice. So here you can see we have requirement that for each and every purchase order there will be only one line. So that's why here we are able to see. So why we are like in this requirement we have only one line. If there will be multiple line for a single purchase order, then implementation will be a bit different. I will explain you in last one integration will be done. And if each and every transaction will having only one line, that's quite simple and easy to implement in OIC. So we'll go for that too. And the data we will have in the CSV file. So all these things we get to know, right? So now here you can see in the mapping and the comment, here you have in the mapping we have hard coded values. It means that so whenever that requisition business unit column will be there, we have to provide hard coded value as a US1 business unit. This is a simple value defining that what will be the hard coded value. So you can see, so in OIC, right, generally if you will see for passing this value as a hard coded value in the mapping only, we can go and we can pass this value, right? But for example, later they want to change these hard coded values. So what you have to do, you have to go to integration, edit the integration and do the mapping changes there, right? So that's not the good way. So that's why in while working on integration we generally prefer lookups. So we are using lookups in OIC to provide runtime value to the integration. So instead of providing the hard coded value in the mapping, OIC mapping, what we will do, we will create one lookup, and that lookup will hold all the hard coded values based on the integration. For example, this is purchase order integrations. So in lookup there will be one column name as purchase order, and based on the purchase order there will be all multiple columns. One column's name will be requisition BU, bill to BU, buyer name and all, and this based on this column we will store the value in the lookup. So in OIC lookup will be used to extract the value from lookup. And then later if business want to update the value, for example business want to change the user buyer name for creating the purchase order, they don't need to do any changes in OIC, right? They will just go to the that lookup, or they will ask you to do. So you will just have to move to the lookup, and in lookup just you have to replace the buyer name for the purchase order lines available in the lookup. So that's why we, instead of providing the hard coded value, we are going to use the lookup. So in our session, today's session, we will cover lookup parts too. So this is are the mapping we have created. Based on that mapping we have to go and we have to create the integrations. And again, For that, obviously we require one file, which file contain all these columns, whatever columns here it's mentioned, right? So right now we don't have any file, so let me create one CSV file which contain all these columns, and then we will load that CSV file at file server. So here you can see, so this is the first column that will be there in the file. So let me provide this one, the currency, and then we have description. After that, PO lines is there, that all these columns are coming from files. So whatever column coming from files, I'm just going to create one CSV file with this all column, so that we will place the file at file server and we will get all this column in OIC. I'm just explaining you how you can prepare your file so that you can share with the this file, sample file, with client, and you can share the mapping so that client will share you these details, or either client will give you this mapping and the file, so that based on that mapping and file you can prepare your integration and you can develop your integration. So it can be vice versa, depends on the project. So obviously in big org, they are not doing all these things by self, they are asking to functional team and the users to provide all these things too. Item number, uh, line items, then we have unit of measure, and unit of measure is coming twice. Then we have to go for quantity. Item date and ship to. So now here you can see in our data file we have listed all the columns, which columns we expect from the files. Now we will provide few sample value in the file so that it will be considered as the user is provided this value. So just example, even we already given the value. So this hard coded value we are not going to add in file, because obvious hard coded value will be fixed for each and every row. So that's why you need to pass here in the file, and even you will not get in this file also. So the value for BU, we have this US1 business unit. So now here I given US1 business unit. Now next column is currency. So currency always will be USD. So here we have, not always, so whatever currency we will get in the file. The description, so the simple description I'm just using here, this one, and the PO line, so it will be one. Then we have the type, this will be coming in data file. Items can be obvious, like whatever will be there in the file we will load that one. So just for testing purpose or creating integration we will use the same. Quantity can be anything, so let's go for first order as a 10 only. Then the price, and we have the schedule. So here you can see schedule is hard coded, so I'm not going to pass here this demand date. Demand date is the string value as a date, so here this is the date. And after that ship to. And here you can see in mapping it's saying that this demand date value should be YYMMDD format. So in the data file I will ask user to provide value for the demand date in that format only, right? So as of now it's not there, so let me convert this one into the format. So now you can see this, there is one record we have in the file. So now let me just copy the same record. Okay, so here we added few records to create purchase order, and all the records having same data, let it be the same. Just let me change the quantity so that each and every purchase order will have the different quantities. So let me go for 150, 160, 235, or like quantity is like 9, 167 and 189. And now the price is, let me go to change the price, so 200, and let is 20,500 anything, 157, and here we are going to give the quantity as 7 only, 37, 1500, anything. These are the value. We are just as we are creating this file for testing purpose, so we are giving any values. All this value will come from the file on the other source system only. So whatever they will provide, they will give. So just for testing purpose, I am using this one only. So now here date, let me change the date to, so this 11/25, let me make as 30 for few of the records. Import as 29 and same like it. So these are the description. So let me change the description. The first description, the PO is created by SOAP UI as, let me give the name as first record. I'm just using this description, PO description as this way, so that like we can just identify this PO details description and all these things we can see in the integration from the from Fusion also. So this is the purchase order description I given. This is the line and all details are there, right? So now what we have to do, we have to just save this file as a CSV file, and we have to load this file into the file server so that we can create integration which will read the file from there. So here you can see, as these all are the correct data, and based on that it will OIC will create the purchase order. So instead of that, what we can do, let me pass any value as an incorrect value so that OIC will fail while creating, and we will handle that fail cases too. For example, let me delete this demand date, and we know that demand date is mandatory to create purchase order. So just for brief, if you will see, we already have the prepared request payload. So this request payload having all the value which we used last time, right? So let me go and submit this one. So let me change the password, as this password got changed today. So now here you can see this is the value. Here need by data are there. If I will run this one, it will create purchase order in Fusion. The same things we will use in OIC. So just let it run. It's taking time to create purchase order or do transactions in Fusion. It can be depends on the Fusion server issues. So Fusion server is a bit slow today. That's why it's taking time. So now once purchase order will be created, we will get a response. That response will hold the purchase order number and other details. So let me till now go to the Fusion applications and let me go for purchase order, and one purchase order will be created. We will search the purchase order here. And you can see we got 200. Okay, go to XML and you can see the purchase order number. Order number, this one created. Let me go to Fusion and search the purchase order here in order. So search. So you can see whatever value we pass, the purchase order created here. Right now it's pending approval because it's auto approved setup is there. It will approved in the system only. So by the way, we created purchase order. An example, you can see if we didn't pass this date, right, need by date, and we'll run this API, we will get error here as per the setup. So this need by date we have to provide. And obviously it's not, sometimes it can be depend on setup, that if in setup is there that way that we don't need to provide the need by date, so this API will work. That's why for that first we have to prepare the payload so that we will get to know all the columns, and we can check that configuration of the Fusion is done or not. Even we can add the validations based on business requirement, that we have before loading the data to purchase order, we have to check that is working fine or not. So here you can see this purchase order is also created without passing this one. So let me skip these things. This will not in issue. So find anything. So for example, if we didn't pass item, let me see it's working or not. So I'm just trying to find any error scenarios so that we can add that error scenarios in our file, and based on that we can check. So here you can see we got 500 internal server error, and internal server error you can see the message is failed to validate a key object, draft purchase order something. Somewhere we will have the error message related to item. Let's see. Same message we will pass while after integration completed. Here you can see you must provide a value. Where what was the error message? Here you can see you must provide a value for the line description attributes. For the line description we have to provide the value, and here we didn't provide the item number, right? So that is one of our validations that we will use in our OIC to handle the even conditions and add the business logics too. So what we will do, so in OIC we will add conditions. If any of the row doesn't have the item number, we will not process the row for creating the purchase order. So let me use the same date here, and this is where is the item number. This is the item number. Let me remove this item number from here. So this is the fourth purchase order, doesn't have the item number, item lines item, it will generate an error. For example, let me see that without unit of measure are we able to process or not. So here you can see we are passing unit of measure here EA, and this is the unit of measure code, right? So this again, this unit of measure and unit of measure code we have to get somewhere else, right? So let me see that what is the mapping for getting this one. A unit of measure, where is this one? So we will create one again, we will create lookup where we will pass this unit of measure as EA, and based on that unit of measure EA we will get the ZZU code over there. So that kind of things logic we will add in our OIC. So for example, let's that unit of measure will work if we are not going to pass line type. So line type is hard coded value will be goods only all the time. Let me, for example, let me remove the buyer. So is that buyer? No, that buyer is also based on that ship2 location. If you will delete the ship2 location, will it create purchase order without ship2 location? Where is the ship2 location? Go below ship2 location code, right? So I'm just going to remove this ship2 location and just running this one integration. I'm just finding any scenarios where we will create the invalid case. So here's in ship2 also required. You can see you must provide a value for ship2 location attribute. So here these two validations we will add in our OIC. So this is the record. Here we will remove the ship2. So now these two record will fail in OIC, remaining will be created, right? So now let me save this file in our system so that I can provide. So give the name as xx py purchase purchase order, and after that I'm just going to add the timestamp in the file because source system may place that in way only. So 2024 and 1130 underscore 01 is the first file for today's .csv. So let me save. So our CSV file is ready, so we'll place the CSV file at file server. So let me go to that file server and place the file over there. Sorry, source directory. So this is our source file server where we will get the file. So just for testing purpose we will place this file manually here, but every time we will get it by the third party system only. So this time this is go to interface, and in the interface we have customer. Let me add one more folder as purchase order, and here we will, this file will be there, and after processing the file we have to archive the file too for reference purpose. So again for that we'll just create one folder name as archive. So once the file will be processed by OIC, that file will be moved here, right? And let me create one more file as error. So for example, why we are created this error file. So let me go. So here you can see we will process this file, and after processing that this two record will be into error. So we will pass this two record into that error folder. so that later business can pick the file from there and they can validate the purchase order and they can process the purchase order again in the next file. So that kind of things we can do. So that's why I created these two folder here. So now this is our source directory from where we have to pick this file, and based on this web services we have to create purchase order in Oracle Fusion. So this is our requirement. So now move to that OIC, and this is our integration. Again, if you will see, while discussing on the mapping side, we get to know few columns will be hard coded values, and that hard coded values we will put into the lookup. So let me create lookup first in OIC so that that lookup we can utilize in our integration. So lookup, for that you just have to go to lookup tab, and here you have to create the lookup. Lookup is just like consider as a table in OIC. That table is a global table which can be which can be accessible by all the integrations available in the instance, that the OIC instance. And obvious that lookup having the flexibilities that whatever the flexibilities is that whatever value we will have in the lookup, it will be passed in runtime. For example, we done changes in lookup, that the value change in lookup will directly reflect at the same time in integration. So any integration that is going to use that lookup. So I'm going to create lookups. I will give the name as FOAS underscore PO underscore LKP. That's lookup. So now we created this lookup here, and now here we have to add the columns, the source column and the target column, or all the details. I think, is there any issue with OIC instance? Let me check. Let me copy this name from here, close this tab, and I'm just again navigating to the lookup where we have to create the lookup. Go to this lookup tab, and here we just have to click on create. Now here, this is the lookup name which we have to give. So now our lookup is created. So you can see these are the column. So in the lookup, that the flexibility is in the lookup, any of the column you can consider as a primary column, that based on that column you will extract remaining column, just like in table we are doing that one, right? So but in OIC the flexibility is that lookup should return at a time one records only. For example, we given name domain name, name one value as A. So if we will pass multiple value here, it can create problem in OIC. So that's also we have to take care so that it can return us the one records only. So in the lookup, what all columns we want to add? For example, we want to add in the lookup this column, right? So we want to add that purchase order type, that's the document type. We want to add this hard coded value as a requisition BU, bill to BU, all these things, right? But based on which we have to pick this file, so there should be one column. So what I will do, I will consider this integration as an interface, and I will give the name to this interface. So I will give this interface. So generally we are using that rice ID or interface ID, anything like based on your project implementation what you want. So I'm just going to give name as interface ID. Interface is something that applications or integrations we are going to create. So this is the interface ID. So I'm just going to give this unique name to the interface ID. So as this is purchase order, so I will give the name that int001. So int001 is the interface ID name which will be defined the purchase order. So with this interface ID, I will give the name of the interface also. So I will edit the column name. So I will give the name as interface underscore name. So based on this interface ID, we can get the interface name. So interface name can be that purchase order inbound. And now we have to give the integration name. So we can pass this integration name also here. Even based on integration name also, you can pick the file from lookup. So you have to just consider that column as a primary. So it's not that here we don't have any options to select the column as primary, but it's all about the logic. So I'm just going to give name as int integration name. So these all are our basic columns. Now after that we will add all the columns which we want to extract for this row. So integration name, right now I didn't make anything. I will provide once I will create the integration name, right? So just here now For adding the columns in lookups, you just have to click on this plus icon. For adding the row, you just have to click on the below plus icon. So these all are the options to add the row and columns. Now here we have to give the column name. The first column name I want to give the name as document type, that the document is style or document type. So I will go and create the new domains and the column name as po underscore document style. And what value this column will store? So we know that this value is going to store these values. This column is going to store this value. So just I'm providing that value here. So in the runtime in OIC, we will use this lookup. We will invoke this lookup. We will pass interface ID as int001. And based on this column, we will extract or we will get the PO document style from this lookup only. So that's why we are using this lookup. Just going to add another column, which column name will be that requisition BU. So give the name as req underscore bu. Now let me add another column for bill to bu buyer supplier. So let me add one more column here. I will give the name as bill to bu. Then we had buyer. Buyer, the one who just created the purchase order. Buyer can create purchase order on behalf of another users too. But obviously it's all depend on the roles what they have. Now we have the buyer. So I will give the column name as pu buyer, and then we have the supplier. Buyer, supplier side code. It can be that all these supplier side code can we have to extract from Fusion applications. So it can be based on the business requirement and validation, so that you can utilize that BIP report to get that supplier name from Oracle Fusion based on that business unit or legal entity or any specific purchase order source they given. So that kind of thing you can use. So now here I will use supplier underscore site. This is the lookup column name. So supplier site name. After that, here we have that schedule number. So as we know that the schedule number every time will be one. So instead of, that's why we are not going to use lookup here. And I will show you that's why we can take another example too to provide direct value. So here we have another one is ship to org. So this ship to org it can be changed later. So I will give ship to org in the lookup. Ship to org. And last column we have as set distribution number, and again it will be same 1 1 for everyone. So let's provide the value. So ship to org we will provide value as 001, and after that we have schedule number will be fixed. Then we have what is this one, hard code, the supplier code. So supplier code is Lee US1 we are going to use. Supplier code, where is the supplier code we created? Supplier site is the supplier code. Supplier site code, supplier name, that's Lee supplier. And we have buyer, so this is our buyer name. And then we have bill to bu, ship to bu, requisition bu, all are same, so I will use the same here. Bill to bu, requisition bu, this one requisition bu, and this is coming from the file. So now our lookup is ready, right? So our lookup is ready to get this one. So here we read one more lookup. So which new lookup we want? So if you will see here, in the data file unit of measure we are going to get as ea for each, but in the API we have to pass unit of measure as zzu something. Let me show you that here. You can see in the lookup, in the code we have to pass zzu for the ea. So for that we require one more lookup, so that based on that we can extract this one, or either we can add this condition in OIC mappers too. So as of now let's go for lookup, so that later on another unit of measure we can include in our integration just by updating the values in the lookup. So now go back. So here let me give the integration name too. So let me give the name as FOAS underscore EY underscore PURCHA let me give the code also, int 001 underscore purchase underscore order in for inbound, right? So this is our integration name that we are going to use in our upcoming uh, uh, few times that we have to create integrations. Now let me create one more lookup. That lookup will store the unit of measure code, so I will give the name as FOS underscore UOM underscore LKP, unit of measure lookup code. So just go for create, and here what we have to do, here in the lookup we will pass that unit of measure code, unit of measure as EA, and based on that we will get the value that the ZZU, that the unit of measure code. So let me give the column name as UOM, that we will pass UOM as EA, and based on that what we have to extract, we have to extract the unit of measure code, UOM underscore code. So for EA, what is the unit of measure code? So that code is ZZU. That can be for that dozen, or for kg there can be a different unit of measure code. So that's obvious, you can extract from the fusion. So let me add one more column as unit of measure name, UOM name. So UO name will be for EF will be each. So we will not use, but yes, it can be, if required we can utilize. So these two lookup we created, right? And these two lookup we have to use in our OIC. So these two lookups are configured. We can utilize these lookups in our OIC. Let's move to the OIC part here. So again, now here our first requirement is to get the data from file server, right? So we have to get the data from file server. So for that, obviously we required file name, and you can see that file name containing that the timestamp, so the file name is not fixed, so that we will go for list. So again we need the file pattern. So we know that every time file pattern will start from xxey purchase order underscore, right? So this file name pattern we will add in the lookup only. So where we will add the lookup, so we will add in our main lookup. So main lookup power is FOSPO lookup. So here we will add one more column for that interface, that int 001, and give the name as file name underscore pattern. So now this is the file name pattern I given, and the file name pattern we know that this is xxey purchase order underscore. This will be the file name pattern. Now here we have to obvious again get the source directory from where we have to get the file, right? This source directory. So again, instead of providing direct or hard-coded value source directory to OIC, let me use this from the lookup only, so that you will also get to know about these things, right? So this is our source directory. So in the lookup I will create one column. The column name will be source underscore directory. This is a source directory, and after that we will have one directory name as archive directory, archive archive directory, and we will have error directory too. So I will create one more column name as error directory, and here also we have to send an email notifications, so that I will also give the email ID here only. So to email, so what will be to email? To email will pass as no reply at oracle.com. Now here sorry, to reply will be our email. So our email will be like my name Aaron Zafar at gmail.com, comma another email, that box oracle apps solutions at gmail.com. Any other email if you want, we can provide the comma separated values, and we can add another emails too. So let me give the two name only. So now one more column I will add as a from email, that from where this email will trigger. So I will give from email. So instead of providing this all value in hard coded as OIC, I will use this value from the lookup itself. So now the from email to email already there. So now here we have error directory. So let me copy the error directories. This is our error directory. Here we want to put all the error file. So I will copy this one, go back, error directory. And this is our archival directory where we have to archive the file. So I will copy this is from here, we'll put it here. So now these are the simple value we added in our lookup, and this all value will be used in OIC. So go back. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this one, right? It's not showing here. I think it's not showing here. Let me we'll check it later. You can try after that session, like in the practice side. So that importing the lookups and all we will discuss in later session. Just for brief, we are using that lookup here. So we created lookup with all the required column which we can utilize in our integrations. Later on, if we want to add a few more columns or while working on integration, if we will get to know that no, this column should be there in the lookups, we will come back in OIC in the lookup and again we will add that lookup. So this lookup, these two lookups are ready. Now we have to go and for accessing the file from this server, right? Sorry, this server we have to create connections, right? So for that we need to create one FTP connections and that FTP connection which we already created, right? So let's, from example, we are doing all this from scratch. So let me create one connection again here. So go to connections and this is file server. We have to create one FTP connections and for that we require the FTP details. So let me go and check what is the FTP details there. All this information, either it can be SFTP details, ATP details, or the fusion and all. So you should ask before starting your integration development from the team, right? So that while working on the integrations, there will not be any foundations for you, or it will not take your extra additional time while working on that. So for that file server, this is our host. Same you can see here we have. You can see voice underscore pod is our user and host is 8486501. You can see this is the one. So same we will use to create connections. Let's go back to that OIC and all these details will you will get from the client or the third party system by who is going to provide the file to server, right? That it can be your file server or your, it means that client file server, or it can be the third party system server. So they will provide you details. Now go to connections, create connections, just select the adapter. So as this is file server, FTP server, so I will select connection adapter name as FTP and we have to give the name. So I will give the name as FOAS underscore EY. Just for example, our org name is EY underscore the connection name. So this connection is related to FTP, so I will give the name as FTP underscore com. So generally for each and every integration there should not be the multiple connections. So there should be one connection which connection can point only a specific server, and if you have 10 integration which will get the file from same server, so you have to utilize the same connection instead of creating connections every time new connections, right? So as this in connection we are going to invoke, so I will select invoke only, go create, and you already know what's the meaning of that invoke role as invoke and trigger, right? So here we have to provide the host. So we know that our host is this one. So I will copy this host here. The host is it can be this value on the IP address. So both it can be. So both this will be confirmed by the server team who is handling the server. So now we given the host and what is the port we have to provide. So the port is this one. And optionally while creating FTP connections we have one option to select the SFTP connection. So these things, right, again you don't have information about the file server, this is FTP or SFTP, right? So as I already worked on this, so I know that this is FTP as a this is SFTP connection, but a SFTP server, again while working on project you have to ask that you the details of the file server you given, that is FTP or SFTP. So that here you can see it's asking that SFTP connection. Yes, it is SFTP connection. So I will select yes. After that, just go below. So all these are based on the security what they are using for that file server. So as this is public FTP connections, we don't require any SSL key or host key or anything here. So I will just go below and we'll provide the file server credentials. So I will just go and this is our user. So I will use this user here and the password we have to provide here. So this is the password. Now I just have to test that connection so that it's everything is fine or not. The ID password host port is working fine or not. We are able to connect with the server or not, right? So here you can see configuration process 100%. It means that this OIC is able to connect with the file server. This file server. So now click on save so that it will be changed to configure. Now our connection is ready to use. So this is our connections. Let me make a note of this somewhere else so that same we can refer. So this FTP con and all these details, right? The connection name, integration name, lookup name, you have to mention in that technical design document when you will you will create after integrations, development of the integration. So before deliver the integrations, you have to create or update the TDD, whatever is there. So this connection is done. Now using this connection, we will be able to get the file from file server, right? Or even we will be able to archive the file at server. But now our requirement is to perform the operations and utilize this SOAP web services. It means that from OIC we have to invoke this SOAP web services. That's why in OIC we have SOAP adapters available. So I will create one SOAP connection. That SOAP connection will utilize the web services or the WSDL services to perform the operations of invoking the SOAP web services. So I will use the adapter as SOAP, and again this SOAP adapter is connection is going to invoke the SOAP web services. I will select role as invoke and give the name. So FOAS underscore EY underscore. This web services is specifically related to purchase order only, so that this cannot be used to invoke the VIP report and all. So let me give the name here as a PO only, PO and PO con. So this is like purchase order connection. So click on create. We may use put the name somewhere else. Now here we have to provide the WSDL and user password, right? So we know that WSDL for this web services, we already have used in that, and we make a note of that too. So you can see this is the URL or WSDL for purchase order. So I will copy this URL, and in that URL you can see this dev 18 is our Fusion URL. I will show you that same which we are using as a Fusion. This is the WSDL URL, and you can see this is one, right? The dev 18 same we utilized. So now here we have to provide the ID password, right? So this ID password, so this user password token, that's fine. We don't need to go for authentication, other authentication or that auth2 basic and all, right? So here we'll go for basic only, right? So basic authentication. And here we have to select the user and the password. So what is the user for our Fusion applications? So this for supply chain, we have this user. So I will use this user, and we have to use the password. So this is our Fusion password. So I will use this Fusion password here. So now check. So I will click on test to check that from this OIC environment we are able to hit these services or not. If we will be able to hit the services, configuration process will be moved to 100%. Then we just have to save. I have to remove this additional slash here. Let's see. And here you can see when we imported this into our SOAP UI applications, automatically added the port. So it's not required here to add the port. Again, OIC will also do the same. It will automatically add that port whatever they want to add or they are using. So no need for us to add. Just waiting to complete this connection. So here you can see it got completed 100%. It means that our details, that credentials and that the URL we given, that URL is working fine. That URL is available and OIC is able to ping this URL. So let me test again just for confirmation. Test and validate, and then we'll go for save. So now here our connection got 100% in progress. So just we have to save so that the connection status will be changed to configure, and this connection will be able to use in OIC. So let me see, do I have copy or not? Yeah, so connection I already copy. Let's go back. So the connection part is also done. Now what we have to do, we just have to go and create the integration. So I'm just going to integrations tab to create integration. Now the point is which kind of integration pattern we have to select. So we have to select that REST API app driven, or we have to select the schedule one. So as this is file based, this integration is going to be process records by picking file from somewhere else, and it will iterates. And again, like while executing this integration, we are not supposed to pass any values, right? That values or data for that integrations we are going to get from file server only. So that's why instead of going for app driven, we will go for schedule. And there is another reason for selecting the schedule also. So we are not sure that how many records will be there in the file and how much time it will take to process, right? So we know that AppDriven having their own limitations and all. So instead of going for AppDriven, we will go for schedule. That's that easy way. And also that that kind of requirement when we have to compare, we have to consume the file from file server and process into Oracle, and after that again repeating the same process. That's why we are going for schedule, so that after integration creation we can schedule the integration on any specific time, so that that a specific time integration will automatically trigger. So here we create selected integrations pattern as schedule. We'll give the name. So I will give the name as FOAS underscore EY underscore purchase. So no. So instead of giving any other name, I will just go and use the same integration name which we I used here, so that if based on integration name only, if I have to pick values, I can easily pick from anywhere. So I will just use here the integration name. Identifier automatically come, that's fine to me. Just go and click on create. Integration will be created. Canvas will have that the endpoint of that schedule one. Now again, we are not sure about what is the file name placed over the file server, so we cannot directly download the file or directly read the file, right? So that's why we will go and we will first list the file from file server. So what we can do for listing the file, we will go and create the FTP connections. But again, for FTP connection, we have to provide the file name pattern. We have to provide the file directly from where we have to pick. And right now we don't have, right? So we can just directly pass the hard coded values. So instead of providing that one, we will get this value from the lookup. And again, from getting this value from lookup, we can directly map, provide the value in the mapper. But if we will provide the value in the mapper, that same value, if we have to utilize in another place, again we have to invoke the functions to get the value from lookup. So instead of that, we will create variable, and in that variable we will store the value. So as this value is going, variable is going to store few default values or fixed values. That's why I will give the name as default, and this is assign action, so I will give the name as assign. So this file assign, and now we have to create the variable. So how many variables we have to create? So all this value which we can utilize in OIC. So obviously this all columns coming from lookup we have to utilize in OIC. So I will first create with all this column, then later we will update. So first variable I want to create as var underscore interface ID. And we know that interface ID, right? And even if you don't know the interface ID, so we know that how we can get the interface ID. So we can get the interface ID based on integration name, right? So just whatever integration name you will pass, based on that, it will pick the interface ID. So what we will do, we will just use the lookup to extract this value based on this integration name. So here in the value part, this is the var interface ID. So here we just have to utilize the lookup. So for extracting the data from lookup, we have one function name as lookup values. You can say this lookup values. This lookup values is a function which will extract the data from the lookup in OIC. So I will just drag here, and once you will drag this lookup values, configuration page will be open. And here you can see in the configuration page, it will ask you to select the lookup name for which lookup you want to pick the value. So I want to pick the value from this lookup FOASPOLKP. So this is our FOASPOLKP. So I will select this column where this lookup, and here you can see how many columns are there in the lookup. Total 16 columns. That's fine, right? So once you will select the lookup, just click on next, and after that you have to select the source column and the target column. It means that based on which column you want to get the data from lookup, that is source column, and what column you want to get from the lookup based on the source column. So in the source, I want to get this rice ID, this interface ID based on this integration name. It means that this is our source, and based on this source we want to get this interface ID. So our source column will be integration name and target will be interface ID. So here I will select source as a integration name, and target I will select as a interface ID. This interface ID value will be stored in the variable that which we added mapping. Go next, and here you can provide any default value. So default value is something that we pass the value here, but in this lookup there is no value for that. So it will default provide that value. So I don't want to provide any values here. Just go and done. So you can see when we configuration page got ended, this value automatically came here. This is the functions. If you will copy this value here in the notepad somewhere, right, you can see this is the syntax to get the value from lookup. So this lookup function, the dvm lookup function, is responsible for getting the value from this lookup based on this column, that integration name, and what will be based on this column, it will extract the value from this interface id column. But what will be the value for this integration name? This is the source value placeholder. So this value will be replaced so that this value will be searched in this column, and based on that, whatever value will be there in this interface id column, it will return. This function will return. So now here you can see this is the source value placeholder, so I have to replace this value. So this value will be replaced by the integration name, this integration name. And where you will get this integration name? This integration name you will get in the metadata. So go to self, inside the metadata you have this integration, and this is our integration name. So just drag this integration name here in place of the placeholder. Just expand here to edit, select and drag here. Oh shit. So it got removed. So I have already copied there. I will just change here. So now you can see that got replaced. So if I will copy and I will able to see here, you can see this is the same. So this source value got replaced with this name, the our endpoint name, that name. That name is our integration name from metadata. And based on that, it will search this value into integration name column of this lookup, and whatever value will be there in interface ID, that it will return, and that value will be stored in this variable, that var interface ID. So this is the first variable we added, which will store the interface ID. Now next we have to create for getting the interface name. Yeah, default value is saying that, for example, this lookup name, we are giving this source as a lookup name, this source as a name. So based on that, it didn't find this value in this lookup, right? So in this lookup we don't have any record with this name. So what it will do in this case, whatever default value we will pass, that default value it will provide in that variable, it will provide in this variable. So here you can see we have options to provide this default value. You can see the single quotes. So this is the parameters for providing the default value. So right now we didn't pass anything. It means that that variable will not store any value if we didn't find in the lookup. So now next we have to go for another one, which can be the integration name we already had, so we don't need to use this one. Interface name, and then we have document style. So let me create one variable. That variable name will be var underscore interface name. And again, this interface name value we will get from the lookup only. So based on the what, so again, based on the integration name column with this value, and what value we want instead of interface id, we want that interface name, right? This name. So I will just have a copy here, this one. So okay, sorry, at first I will make a copy here, this one. And instead of interface id, which column I want to get the column name as interface name. So let me copy this name from here, copy, close, and I will paste it here. So as everything is same, so I can just utilize this mapping value here in our variable. So I'm just going to put it here. Just click. So you can see now this variable got mapped successfully. Because again, when we are selecting the lookup values function is doing this, it's generating this syntax only, and we can directly use this syntax, so that every time we don't need to just open the configuration of page of the lookup. So go now after interface name, I will not go for integration name, that's common. And we have the PO document style requisition BU. Let me copy this multiple times. So in interface name, after that interface name, we have to go for interface PO style ID. So I'm just copying the name from here, so that if I will type, right, it can be possible that I can do mistake. So instead of typing, I'm just going to use here requisition BU. So I will pick this, will pick requisition BU, and here it's bill to BU. And after that we have buyer, and after buyer we have supplier. Variable name can be anything, but this one here parameters will be the should be the same as we used in that lookup. After supplier, we have ship2org. So let me do multiple here. After ship2org, we have the file name pattern. And here you can see, just let me example, let's pass any default value. For example, if we don't have any file name pattern in this column, so what it should we do? So here we are going to provide that star.csv. So whatever file name will be there with a star.csv, it will pick that one. So that default value we are going to use here, just for example purpose, right? So after that purchase order, that file name pattern, we have source directory. So this is source directory. After that we have archival directory. So let me copy this archival directory too. And we have error directory here. And copy this same twice. After that error directory, we have to email and from email. So let me copy this one. So we use variable because that every time if we have to use same value, we don't need to use this lookup function again and again, right? So that's why we created variable, so that the same variable we can utilize in our integration anywhere we want. So these all functions we created. So now one by one I will pass to that variable, right? So this is for document style. So I will just create one variable with the name document style. So lv underscore lv, it means that the where, sorry, instead of lv, where document style is our variable name, and which variable will store the value as this from this lookup. So lv was created. Now here we have requisition bu. So I will give the name as where underscore requisition bu. That's done. After that we have bill to bu. Let me copy this one. I told you that this is the just variable name. So this variable name we can provide anything, but while providing this name here, we cannot do any incorrect value. We cannot pass. That's why I just copy and paste from the lookup itself. Buyer name. I have to create one more variable for buyer name. Underscore. So the buyer name is done. After that we have supplier. Buyer underscore supplier. After that supplier we have ship to org. So let me add all this one by one. So you can go for a string. So what incorrect value I used? So here we have to provide the column names. Instead of column name, I provided the value, right? So if we will pass into OIC, it can create again problem. So I just have to go back to the lookup and let's see what is the column name for this one file name pattern. This is the column. So file name patterns is there. So this is the column name, file name pattern. It will pick the value there, and if that value will not find, then it will by default use a star.csv. So this is the one. Add another one. File name pattern. After that we have source directory, where underscore source directory. Again, we have to add one more column for archival directory. So this last column from email, let me copy here. And again, I will create one variable with this name as from email. So these are the basic columns which we obviously required in our integration. So in the remaining column, remaining variable, we will start designing the integration, and one by one, whenever we will require any variable, we will come back to this assign again and we will create the variable accordingly. So we got error. Let's see what is the error here. First save. Maybe any of the endpoint which I got missed. Set. So we just have to provide value again. So let me see that what is the error here. Okay, the error is that is correct, right? So this all are already provided here. So this is just because of the mapping. So maybe something we have done wrong. So let me copy this one again. Maybe I faced these issues earlier, but let's see that is it that related to the one only which I am thinking. So yeah, so here you can see the schema is here NS318 and name, right? But every time what we are passing manually here, so we are just taken the value and we are dragging the using the same value again and again here NS11 here, right? So each and every time when we are dragging any node, that node can have the different schema values, right? So that we have to take care. So instead of directly copy and paste, I have to pick from there only. So you can see this time if I will select, this will be give another schema value. So this one is there. Let me go back to the point. So this is the one. I will click on this one to expand, and here you can see name is right now here we have the NS11. So if you will go to self again, and I will drag the name here. So you can see 318 this time. Earlier it was different. Let's see, check this one. This time again I will edit and it's uh, rework. But let's see we have to do. So let me change all this endpoint. 318 is again for this time. That schema got changed for first time. That's why it's throwing an error. So just we have to change the schema again. So whatever is there. So it seems that every time we are getting is that 318 schema only. So this time let me check. So yeah, the schema is 318 only. So I'm just going to copy this schema and I will use this one without changing the variable outside. So I will just change here only. So this is done. Again, let me go edit this one. This got stuck there. Edit, and here instead of that I already copy, so I will replace this one. Click here and we'll check that is corrected or not. What was the this is for supplier? Let me check for supplier name. Click here and you can see error got resolved. So just for confirmation I'm just going outside and checking that it's working for remaining or not, so that we can go and check other one. No, it's not working. So again we have to drag and drop one by one. So here we just have to add one by one all the variables. That copy paste is not going to work here. We are getting error. So now here we just have to provide the integration name as a parameters to the lookup for this from email, and the last one is remaining for this to email. So let me create one more variable for to email where to email, and again I will use the lookup here. Go to functions. Inside the integration cloud we have lookup functions, and in the lookup function we'll select lookup source again our integrations, and the target is to email. Go back, done, and done. So now we created all the variables. Here we have to provide the name, right? So it again it will throw an error if we will didn't provide. So now here we just have to replace this source value placeholder with the mapping. Now I think OIC is also working slow today. Not like this. Delete again. Go to functions. Integrations cloud. Drag this lookup here again. So to next, select the source as integration name. After that, we just have to go for to email. Go done. Now here the source placeholder value is replaced with the integration name. This is our integration now. Now so you can see we created all these variable one by one in and that variable is ready to use. So now we created all the default variable which variable we can utilize in our integration further. So now what we have to do next? So we have to get the file from file server. So obviously before getting the file from file server, we have FTP operations that download and directly read. But we just have to get to know about the file name, right? So we don't know the file name. That's why we have list file operation of FTP connection. So I will go and I will add the FTP connections here. So what was the FTP connection name which we used while creating? So we created connection name with FOS EY FTP con. So I will just search this connection here and I will add this connection in our integration. So once we will add the connection, it will ask you to give the name and we'll select the operations. So I will just give the name that list FTP that I am going to use the list file operation of the FTP connections and here we have to use list. So list file will ask you few details that the directory from where we have to list and where we want to get the file, what kind of with the file name were there and all these things. And we know that the directory where from where we have to list that is the source directory and the file name patterns and where we have to write the file or the get the file name, right? Everything we have in the mapping on the variable only. So instead of providing these details here, I will just provide any dummy value as it's mandatory to provide. So I will just directly as a star here as a star and just go and next. So I don't want to go and check the recursive file. So I will remove this tick here and go and click on next. Go finish. It will ask you to provide all the details in the mapping itself. So go to the mapping and in the mapping here we have to provide the value, the source directory from where we have to list the file. So go to the list FTP list header. This is the file name pattern. So we know that when we have one variable that's file name pattern, we will map here. But if you will see the file name pattern will store only that starting of the file name, right? But we have to provide the index, right? After that, what we want. So after that, we want anything, right? Anything.csv, right? So here we have to provide the file name. That's fine. And but we will to provide that concat this file name comma star.csv. So after that file name, anything, any name will work fine, but under without CSV file. So this is the file name pattern we given directly from where we have to list. That's why we have the source directory and that source directory we added in one variable. So this is the source directory. I will map this source directory here. So this in the response of this endpoint, we will get the file name. So how many files are there? All these things we will get to know. So before going to download the file, we have to check that do we have the file at file server or not. So if we will not have any file at file server, the count of the file count will be 0, right? So that's why we have to add one condition here, that switch I will use. In the switch, I will add the count of this list. So what count I want to add? So you can see this is the expression builder expand here, and you can see list file FTP, the list FTP expand response. Inside the response, you can see the item count. This item count is the total number of file count present at the file server. And I want to check that if item count is greater than 0, right? So we just have to process the integration if our item count is greater than 0, that's 1, 2, 3 or anything. So based on that, for example, if we have two files at file server and we want to process all these two files, right? So for that we have to add the loop, right? So for that I will add the loop. So for adding the loop again here we have to add for each loop so that for example this list file return 4 records, right? It means that we have 4 file at file server and we have to process all these 4 one by one. That's why we require for each loop here on this response of this list file. So this is the if case, and what if the file is count is greater than not greater than 0. It means that it can be 0 or it can be like, obviously it will not be less than 0, but it can be 0. So in 0 case, what you want to do? So in case of 0, I just want to display the log message or send the notification. So let me add the notification here. And where is the notifications? Let me find, this is the notification. So in case of that, I just want to add the notification as file not found. So let me give the endpoint name as file not found notification. And what will be the two emails? So two email and the from email, both we added in the variable, right, from the lookup. So to email, we have one variable name as to email, where to email, we will map this one. Now here we will find one variable that we created. So you can see the to email, here we have one variable name as to emails. I will drag this to email variable here. After that, go to cc2 design, from where this email will trigger. So from this email will trigger from, where is the from, this from email. I don't want to give cc bcc anything. That's fine. Go to subject, and the subject I will give the message like integration status, right? So I want to give the message as, mm, we got the file interface name, right? So this interface name we already know. So purchase order inbound, I will give the name message as purchase order inbound status file not found, something like that. So here we just have to use concat function. I will use concat, and first we have to give the interface name. So we'll select the interface name variable. Where is this one? Interface name, and I will add the message as status colon file not found. So this is the message I want to give to in the subject. And now after that we have to write the body. So just go and write the body. So in body I will simply write, hi team, there is no file present at file server, please check, and this is from regards OIC support team. So now this is the notifications we added in case of file not found. And if in case of file found, that what we want to do. So in case of a file found, we just have to first download the file from file server. So it can be possible that we can have multiple files here. That's why we require to add the loop. So again, I will add the loop here. To iterate the loop over the repeated element that's coming in the response, we require for each loop. So I will add for each loop here. Let me give the name to the for each loop. So I will give the name to the for each loop as list file for each, list file underscore for each. And the same name I will use for providing this here, the variable name. So first add me the repeated element. The repeated element will come from the list file response. You can see the item count, and we already added the condition. If item count is greater than 0, then only iterate the loop. So even it will be one record, that loop will iterate one times only. So drag the element here, and here we'll give the name as the endpoint name underscore loop where. This is the naming convention I am generally following. So just click outside so that your loop will be configured in OIC. Now our loop is got configured, and after this loop configuration, inside the loop only we just have to download the file. So for downloading the file here, right, for downloading the file, again we have to add the FTP connections which will download the file. So I will add the FTP. This is the FTP connection we created, right, that EY FTP. So I will select this one, and I will use the name as download file underscore FTP. Go next. Here we have to select the file as download, and here this is the directory we have to provide. So I will provide all these in the mapping except that the download directory. So we have to download the directory in temp only. So this is the one I will pass in configuration, remaining I will pass in the mapping. So here let me pass that download file. Here we downloaded, right? So now in the mapper we have to provide the directory, the file name, and the directory from where we have to download. And all this we are getting from the response. Even we have the variable, right, response from the list file. So I will use that one only. So if you'll expand this download request, here you can see the file name, which file name you want to download. And we know that we have the file name in the list file response. And this list file response, we added the for each loop. So go to the for each loop, because inside the for each loop only we added the download operation, right? So expand the file. And here you can see the file name. So this is the file name we want to download. From where? From this directory, the loop variable, and this loop is on the response of FTP, and this download directory we are already given in the configuration slash temp, so that's fine, just validate. And that. So now this endpoint will be able to download the file from file server, and after downloading it will place in OIC. Now we have to read the file. So for reading the file in OIC we require a stage file, so I will add the stage file here, and here give the name as read stage. Read, and always I will use read in segment because I don't know the file count. It can be that more than 10 MB of file, 100 MB of file. That's why I will go for read in segment underscore stage, and I will select the operation as read in segment. That read in segment, and here we have to provide the file name which we want to read, which is already downloaded here using this step, and the directory, right? Where is that? So instead of providing all these, I will just go and use the reference. So once you will select the reference, we have to provide the file reference. So for providing the file reference, we are getting file response from the file reference from this download file FTP endpoint. So just go for the configuration. You can see download file FTP, download file underscore FTP is that endpoint. So expand, and here in the ICS you will be able to see the file reference inside that one. You can see, so this file reference I will pass here. It means that this stage file will be able to read this file, right? So now when it will be able to read the file, so we need to provide the schema to read. So we know that we have the sample file, that sample CSV file. This is the CSV file which user placed at the file server, and this we have to read. So again, as this is only having less records, I will use the same as providing the schema to read also. You can create one separate file with this one or two records just to provide the syntax. So the format is CSV, that's fine, go continue. Upload the file here. So we already saved that file in our local system, so I will upload the file here. So this is the file which we placed over the file server, so same we will use for providing the sample structure. So now file is loaded, we have to provide the node name. So R for record, RS for record set, RS is our array element. So now go below and let's mark all column as optional only, so that we don't know which column doesn't have the value, right? So but at least one column should be mandatory, so I will make that as mandatory, the first column as mandatory, that's fine. All are optional. Oh, again we have to refresh. That's the problem with generation 3, right? So every time when if you will do anything, mouse your will go here and there, that endpoint will remove. Let me save again. Here we have to again add the stage file. So I will give the name as stage here. This is read in segment, so I will give the name as read in segment stage. Go continue. We have to select that read in segment. Yes, we have to provide the references. So references will come from the download. Expand again. Expand. ICS. Reference I will select here. Let me drag here. Now go continue. CSV is fine. We just have to provide the schema. So we already have the file in our local system. So this is the file I'm going to use. The endpoint name is R for record, RS for record. So this you can pass anything, that it just used for creating the node with the same name. R for R and RS name it will use to provide the record array element set. So now we added the stage file operation, and inside the stage file you can see this is the scope. So for each and every segment or the batch or chunk it will read the file, and that read file only we have to pass that read file, whatever read file we use the records, that records we have to pass to the SOAP web services to create the purchase order. And that SOAP web services we already created the connections. But if you will remember, our requirement is if any of the record is not processed in Oracle or not created purchase order, that the record we have to mark in the we have to create separate file for that, right? For that separate file, let me create one syntax for that. So what I will do, I will use all this column in the file, right? All this column in the file with the two extra column as status, right? So here just given this one, I paste it here. I'm not able to see. Let me copy this file again. So I just copy here, paste it. Sorry, paste it here, and the two additional column will be status and status message. And here even instead of that status and status message, we can do one thing. We can create one file which file can store the success record too, right? So not only the error record. So for that, for in case of success record, we will have the success status as S, or in case of error it will be E or something, and it will be the error message. So this two will be there, but in case of success, let me add purchase order number 2 in the file. So let me add that PO Oracle PO number. So this is the file which we will return and a response from this integration. So let me save this sample file. This is just a sample file, right? I used while provide the in the provide in the what we can say in the stage file to provide the schema. So I'm just going to use as a CSV schema here, and we'll give the name as PO error status sample file CSV. So now the sample file created here, I will just go to integration again, and in the integrations, so we have to just append the value in that record only, right? So for before going to append the file value into the file, so what we will to do, we have to create one file which file can store the header values, right? So that we can append that one. So for creating that one, let's go and create one stage file outside this one, or instead of that outside, we can create one inside the loop only, so that if we will have multiple files, that multiple files will be created here. So after downloading, let me add one stage file here, so that we can just write the header value of the error file. So I will use a stage, and I will give the name as log, right? Log file, and log file will be placed at the error directory. So let me give the name as write log header underscore stage. Next, so we have to write the file, so I will use write. And what is the file name? So I will give the file name as xx. So instead of that, let me use the file name same as the file name which we are getting from the server. So we will have the loop variable which store the file name from where even we downloaded the file. So this is the loop where go, this is the file name. So for example, our file name is this one, right? This one, this one is, this one dot csv is our file name. So what we want to add the log message as, in a starting I will add the log dot same dot csv, that will be our file name, right? So just we have to add the log here. So for that I will use concat, I will use log underscore the same file name I want to use. So for that, again here you can see this is one value comma this value second, and done. So the same thing we have to use. So let me use this one copy here, So here file name I will use this one, log comma file name. The in file name .csv is already there, right? So this will be our file name. Let me make a note of this one so that the same we can utilize while appending the records, right? So then directory where we have to write this log file. So I want to write this log file even in the same temp directory. So copy, go next. CSV is done. Let me pass this temp here too. Now here we have to provide the schema so that that can be write the file based on that. This is the sample file which we have to provide. So just sample file again, R and RS. That's everything is cool. So just I'm just going to make this column as optional and as first column as mandatory. Continue, continue. Now here we are able to add the stage file to write the log file with header message. So I'm just going to in the mapper I'm going to provide the header values. So obvious header value is something that the fixed value for that header name of the column of the CSV file. So that we have to provide manually, just providing one by one. So I will use this one only to provide value. So just expand this one, expand, and these are the column name we have to make. So one by one I will just go create target node and I will provide the name. So this name I will copy from here, go to the mapper, and here we have to pass. So the first record it will be considered as a header. So that will solve our purpose even that we want. So all this column, whatever we want to give to the file, log file name, let me add here only. Even we can give the name that PO underscore line here. We don't have options to copy here. Line types done. Then we have to go for line items. So let me provide all these values one by one here. Now we are done with providing all the values to the mapper. So just go back. Our header file is ready. So now what we have to do inside the stage file, we just have to invoke the SOAP web services so that it can create the purchase order for the record which we read in the segment here. So for that we have to add the SOAP connection. This is the SOAP connection we created, FOS EY con. I will select this one. And here we just have to provide the endpoint name. This is the main point where we are going to invoke SOAP web services. So here just we have to give the name. So I'm just using which operation we have to use. So here you can see in the SOAP UI we have to use operation as create purchase order. So I will give the same name as which operation we are going to use in this connection. So I will use create purchase order underscore SOAP. So this is the SOAP endpoint. Configure the callback invokes and all. No, as of now I don't want to do anything here. So just go back. So go next. And here you can see the services by default is coming purchase order services, and the port name is purchase order service SOAP HTTP port, and the same you will be able to find here. You can see we use, you can see when we imported this one, so purchase order services SOAP HTTP inside that what we were, and this is coming from where, this is coming from the create purchase order, and inside that we have the create purchase order entry and all these things. So it will be available once we will select the operations. So we have to select the operations as create purchase order. You can see create purchase order, and the selected services you can see purchase order services. This is the same you are able to find here, purchase order services. So now you selected the operations. Once you will select the operation, below things you will be able to, this is the exceptions, this is the object or response we are going to get, and this is the request object. So that's fine, just go and continue and you will be able to find the endpoint. I don't want to provide any configuration, header configuration. That's done. You can see this is the same URL we given in that WSDL. Again we have to add. Let me refresh this page again. So again, go to the stage file. Inside that, this soap connection we already added. Just edit here so that it will open the mapper. So this configuration is opened here. I let me give the name. So I will give the name as create purchase order soap. Go next. The operation we have to select as create purchase order. Create purchase order. Go continue. Don't want to configure anything. Just go and finish. So now you can see our endpoint is configured here. Oh, let me edit again. Unlock first. Unlock and discard. No, edit and recover. So go back inside this segment. This is the connections. Let me give the name again. Create purchase order. Continue. Select the operation as create purchase order. That you can see by mistake we selected change purchase order. So we have to select the create purchase order. Be care about while selecting these operations. But create, cancel, change all are looking like same name. So it can be possible that you can do mistake while selecting the operations. So just care about that point. So our endpoint is added. Let me save again just for so that not having any issues later. So now inside the stage we are able to invoke this SOAP web services. But again you can see we already learn about the fault handler, right? The scope. We know that we can get error in this point, right? So we can get error if we will not able to, it will not be able to create the transaction. To handle that error, that's why we required that the scope. So scope will handle the error, and based on that scope we will add the scope fault handler. So here I'm just going to add the scope. Inside the scope I will add the soap call. So I will give the name of to the scope is create po underscore scope. That's done. Click outside, and these two I will add inside this scope. Expand. So I will go, I will select this two endpoint. Sorry, I will select this two endpoint, and I will do cut here. Inside this I will go and paste this two endpoint here, paste. So now this two endpoint move inside this scope, so that if you will get any error in this scope for this any of the endpoint, that error will be handled in the default handler. So for that we have to create the default handler too. So before going to create default handler, let me configure the mapping for this endpoint. So just head it here. So you can see the connection we use, right, having the same value, right? Same endpoints we will be able to see, and for that we have to provide the value, and we know that from where this value will be picked, right? So we have already the mapping document. That mapping document is explaining that what will be the mapping for that value. So you can see the document style will be hard coded, which we are going to get from the lookup, and that the this one the procurement business unit we are getting from the purchase or BU, the column coming from data file, all these things, right? So we will do one by one mapping. Go to integration. If you will expand the body, you can see inside the body we have the create purchase order node. Inside the create purchase order node we have create order entry, and inside the order entry we have the details. Same you will be able to find here. You can see body. Inside the body we have create purchase order in, and inside the purchase order we have create order entry, and these are the details. You can see same create purchase order, create order entry, and this is the details. And here you can see you will be able to find all the columns which were there when we configure this, we selected these operations. But all of out of all the column we just have to provide value to few columns only, right? So whatever columns we value we provided here, same we will provide in the integration. So the first value is document style. Let me search the document style in this source side, here target side. So this is the document style, right? This document style column, and this will be the hard coded as per our mapping. And this we added in the lookup, and that lookup we added variable for that lookup. So just search the variable with the name document style. So you can see this is the document style variable I will map here. So now one value is fixed. After that, what is the second value? We have the procurement business unit. Search the procurement business unit here. You can see the procurement business unit here. So this procurement business unit again, this is coming from where? So let's go to the mapping. This procurement business unit is coming from the purchase BU column from the file. So file we already read in OIC. So where is our file? This is the read in segment operation, right? Just expand the read in segment. But again, here you can see we have one mistake. Go back. I will show you. Because in read in segment, right, we can have the lots of line, right? We can have the multiple lines. It means that we have to create this purchase order for each and every line, right? We have to invoke this endpoint for each and every line. It means that inside the stage, if we have 10 lines, we have to iterate loop over this 10 line, right? For that, we need to add for each loop first. So inside the stage, I will add the for each again. I will add the for each again to iterate the loop over this stage file. So this is the for each here. I will add. I will show you the benefits of using a scope in OIC, right? You don't need to use or you don't need to put all the endpoints again and again. You can just directly remove this one, the scope. So you can say repeating element, it means it will come from the stage file. So where is the stage? You can see this is where is this stage? Yeah, you can say read in segment. Expand this read in segment. RS, this R is the record. So for example, our file having 10 records, so this R will repeat 10 times. I will add the repeating element here and I will give the name to this loop. This loop will be stage records for each. This is our loop name. So I will create variable with the same name underscore loop var, right? So just go outside. Our loop will be added inside this stage file. So here we are able to see this scope for this stage file just because this stage file is for reading the segment. That's why we have this segment scope. And for this, suppose here we read 10 lines, so this loop will iterate 10 times. All these 10 times we want to invoke the soap web services. So that's why this scope is just for invoking the soap web services, because inside the scope we have the soap connection. So I will just remove this scope from here and put it inside the loop. Okay, you can see if I will expand, you will be able to see inside the stage we have the loop, and for the loop we added the scope. For each and every loop records, this scope will execute, and inside that we added the soap connections to invoke the soap services to create purchase orders. And here we have to provide the mapping, and for this mapping the value file value will be coming from this loop. The loop name is stage records for each. So just go to the mapping. That's why like in YC, like it's not like that I remember all the point, right? So while working or while designing the integration, step by step whatever requires we will add. So now we got to know that we have to add iterate loop over the records. That's why I just added the for each on that. So after the document style, we have the procurement business unit, and this procurement business unit will come from the loop variable of the stage file. So here we have stage records for each loop where I will expand, and here you can see we have the purchase BU for this. Right, after that what is the next column we have to map? So after that we have to map the requisition BU and the bill to BU. So this requisition BU and bill to BU, it will come from the mapping, or it will come from the hard coded values. You can see requisition BU, bill to BU, buyer, all these are coming from hard coded, and we added loop for that, lookup for that, and for this lookup we already added the variable which store all these values. So go to the variable, first select the variable for requisition BU, bill to BU, buyer, supplier side. So you can see this is the requisition business unit name. You can see this is requisition business unit name. So this requisition business unit name, we have the variable name as var requisition BU. After that we have column as bill to BU. You can see, so search the bill to BU somewhere. You can see this bill to business unit. So I have to search the variable for bill to BU. You can see this is the bill to BU. After bill to BU we have supply buyer name. So instead of looking this all these things, you can, here we have buyer name, but you can search name here also. Just hit here, you can see the buyer name. For that buyer name we have the variable. So just find the buyer. You can see the buyer is our buyer name. After buyer we have suppliers. So I will just go and search the supplier. So you can see supplier ID is supplier, but we have to go for supplier. So I will select the supplier, and here we have our variable at supplier. And then again we have the supplier side. So this is the supplier side. So just putting the supplier side here. Sorry. So the supplier side endpoint we directly get here, and the supplier side we have the variables. I will drag this variable here. After the supplier side we have the currency code. So just go and search the currency code column. And what is the mapping for currency code? If you will go to the Excel sheet, the mapping for currency code is the PO currency column from the source file. So source file, it means that the loop variable, that the stage file for each loop, you can see the currency code. So this is the currency code I'm going to map here. After currency, which columns are there? We have the document description column, and you can see this document description coming from the PO description file, column of the file. So I will go and search. You can see this is the PO description. So first we have to search the document description column here. So I will just copy the node from here, document description, and search this document description here. There you can see it selected document description. This is coming from here, document description. Let me map again. So document description is going to map with this column. After the document description, we have just line number. This line number is inside the purchase order entity line. And what is the mapping for this line number? So let me go to the mapping. This mapping for the line number is coming from the file only, line number, right? Line number, line type, all these are coming from the file. So one by one go, I will map till price. So this, what is the name of this? Is the line number. I'm just going for OIC, search the line number. You can see that, and this line number is inside the purchase order entry line. So as per our requirement, we have only one line for each and every purchase order. That's why this array element we are not going to touch. But if in your requirement you have multiple lines for a specific purchase order, then from where you will get the multiple lines, you have to map that array element to this array element and then column. So as we have only one line for each purchase order, I am not going to use this array element. I will just directly provide the mapping to this line number. So here we have the PO line number. And after that PO line number, which columns are there? We have the line type. So again, I will search here line type. This is the line type and line type ID. So I will go for line type only. So this is our line type. And here we have line items. So the line items is that item numbers in our web services. You can see the item number, that this item number. So this is our item number. So line item will map with item number. After the item number, what is the next column? You can see unit of measure. So I'm just going to search this unit of measure here. You can see unit of measure code. So here we have unit of measure and unit of measure code. So which we have to pick? We have to pick unit of measure. So this is unit of measure, and that unit of measure will be mapped with UOM. That's fine. After unit of measure, you can see we have quantity. So let me go, and this is the quantity, but this quantity having the node as unit code, the and it attributes unit code. That unit code stores the zz value as the code of this unit of measure. So first we have to provide unit quantity, and the quantity will come from where? So let me see the quantity. So this quantity will come from the line quantity. So let me map the line quantity here in OIC. Let me go. This line quantity will be mapped to quantity. And what will be the mapping for this unit code? So if you will go to the mapper, this unit code, right? It's required unit code, and this unit code will be OIC lookup as value from unit code ZZU. And we already created lookup for that, right? So in the lookup, if you will see here, we created this lookup, that FOSUM lookup. This lookup will take value as UOM. Sorry, it's got refreshed again. Let me validate. I will show you that here. So let me go to the lookup. You can see FOAS UOM lookup we created, and here you can see we are passing UOM column as EA, and based on that EA it is passing the unit of code that ZZU, right? This value we want, and we know that this EA we are getting from where? This EA we are getting from the unit of measure value only. So here we'll go, and for this mapping we have to add the lookup. So create target node here. First we have to select the lookup value here. So how we can select the lookup? That's why we have lookup function. So click here to find the OIC functions and search the lookup here. You can see this is the lookup value that I have to drag this lookup value here so that the lookup configuration can be displayed here. Here we have to select that FOS UOM lookup. What will be our source column for the lookup? Source column will be UOM, right? So here I will select source column as UOM, and based on UOM which we want? We want the column as UOM code. So I will select the UOM code. You can see if for example we will pass EA, it will return as ZZU. So that's next. Default value, I don't want to pass anything. Next and done. Now here the source we have to replace. The source will be replaced with what? So replace with the unit of measure line UOM, right? So that's map. So why we selected line UOM? Because line UOM is storing that value. So you can see the line UOM is storing the value as EA, sample value. So that's why I provided the mapping. So based on EA, I will get ZZU. So now that's done. Again, we have to go for price. If you will expand the price, you can see the unit of quantity is done. Now your price having the value, but after that again it's having the attribute as currency code. So price value where it's mapping. So you can see the price is mapped with the item price. So let me map the price first. So item price here, this item price will be mapped with price. And what will be the currency code? That currency code mapping, if you will see, for the currency code mapping is USD, and it will come from PO currency, which we already have. You can see that PO currency, this one, right? So I will map this value here. So now this value is done. Let's hide this one. And after that, which value we have to map? So if you will go to the SOAP again, that's why we required all this testing and all. So after that, we have the schedule number one, that schedule number. And if you will go to the mapping of schedule number, the schedule number mapping is hard coded one. So every PO will have only one line. So this mapping, that's why we didn't created this schedule number and the distribution number. We didn't created variable. So we have to provide hard coded value as one, because each and every line will have only one schedule and the distribution. So but first we have to search the node. So this is the schedule number node. Just search here. You can see the schedule, and this schedule number is inside the purchase order entry schedule. You can see the schedule number is inside that purchase order entry schedule. So now schedule number we have to pass one. Just right click, create target node, and provide the fixed value as one. So I'm just going to provide one value, one after the schedule one, the schedule line. What we have to do? We have to provide the need by date. So this need by date, where we are getting this need by date? If we will search this need by date, we are getting from where? What is the mapping for this need by date? That demand date, right? So just go and find the demand date column is there. So it will be mapped with the need by date. And after that, which column we have to map? So we have the ship to location, and this ship to location, what is the mapping for this? Ship to location is mapped with ship to from the files. So I will go to OIC, search the ship to location code, and the mapping for this here, you can see this is default ship to. So I don't want to go for default, I want to go for ship to location. You can see the ship to location, the ship to location is inside the schedule number, right? You can see inside the entry schedule. So let me have confirm. You can see entry schedule, inside the entry schedule only we have the ship to location. So I will map this ship to location here, and this is not the ship to location, this is ship to location code. And let's see, is that the ship to location code only? Yeah, ship to location code. Now the ship to location code will be mapped with this column ship to. So I will map this column here. right? So let me again map here. So this column got mapped. So what remaining value we had? So if you will see after that, we just have SIP2 organization code. So let me search the SIP2 organization code. SIP2 organization. What is the mapping for SIP2 organization? SIP2 organization mapping is hard coded at 001. It means that we created variable. So let me see that variable SIP2 org code. That what is the variable we created? You can see SIP2 org code. We already created variable. So I will map this SIP2 org code here. And after that SIP2, which all columns are there? So we have only one remaining column, that distribution number. So I will go and search the distribution number, and again the distribution number is also fixed value as 1. So this is the distribution number, and this distribution number is inside the purchase order entry distribution. You can see here purchase order entry distribution. Inside that we have distribution number as 1, and the mapping as per our requirement, or the mapping sheet is, it will be the fixed value as 1. Here you can see the fixed value as 1. So let's go to the OIC and just create a target node and provide the value as 1. So that's done. Validate. Now our mapping is done. Just go back and you can see this is the endpoint configure. Now save here just for reference purpose. Now you can see every time it will iterate the loop over the stage file response. A stage file response, it will invoke the web services to create the sales order, create the purchase order. If the purchase order will be created successfully, control will come here in this place. If it will have any error, control will move inside the scope fault handler. So just go and create the fault handler. So here we have the default fault handler I will go for. In the default fault handler we will get the error message, whatever will be the error message for this the for this soap invoke, right? You can see the fault handler. To store this error message, we required some variable, so that this variable, this message can be accessible outside this scope, right? Outside this scope, so that we can map it to the stage file. So go and create one more variable. In that variable I will store the error message. So let me create one variable, that var error msg, error message. And initial time I will put null in the column only, so that's fine. Just go outside. Now we just have to move here again. Inside the stage read, we have the default, and here we have to provide the error message. So I will use a stitch assign here to update the variable. So the assign, here I will give the assign action name. Action name will be that assign fault. And where we have to assign, we have to assign variable, this value to one variable. That variable we already created. So let me select that variable. That variable name is error message, and this here we will add the error message. So from where we will get the error message? This is the default fault. That's why we have the fault object. You can see create PO scope, and for this scope only we have the fault, right? You can see create PO scope having the fault. So you can see this is the fault object. Just expand this fault object. It's got stuck here. Let me see. So again, go here. Let me edit. And here we have to provide the message. So what message we will provide? The fault coming from scope fault object. Expand this one. Expand. You can see these all are the value. So these details we want to provide to the variable, so that this variable we will map in the stage file, that for the log file we are going to create. So here this is the details. I will map these details here in case of error, right? So now the error message is going to be stored in this error message variable, that var error msg. But here we have to add the logic to identify that we have error or not. So every time when this loop will iterate, so inside the loop, here you can see inside the loop, before going to start this scope, I will use another assign which will first update the variable with error message as null, so that suppose it first iteration we got error, that error variable error message will be stored to that variable, so that in next iteration that variable will be empty, right? So I'm just going to, before this scope only, this scope to create purchase order, I will add assign here. I will update the same variable with null value here, so that in initial time that variable will store null value, and after that and this ending of the loop, this value will store either null value only or the error message. And if that variable having error message, it means that purchase order not created. And if the variable having not having any message, it means that purchase order created successfully. So I will go select the same variable, initialize the variable with null again, error message, and null is fine. Just click outside. Just update the name to this endpoint. I'm going to update the assignment 3 to the name. Initialize error var to null. Right. So before going to process, we mapped as a null value. It will go for the scope. In the scope, it will try to create sales order, purchase order. If it will get error while creating the purchase order, control will move inside the fault that we added, fault handler. And in the fault handler, we will update the same variable. We will update the variable with the fault message. And after that, control will come outside the scope here. So in the outside the scope, now we will check do we have error or not. So here you can see, but here you can see, if that outside this scope, right, we will not be able to get the purchase order number, because purchase order number we will get here in this point, right? So inside this one main only, main of this scope, here we have to create one variable which will store the purchase order number, so that the same purchase order number can be accessible outside this scope, right? For that we require one variable. So again, go to this endpoint, create one variable as purchase order number, var underscore po underscore null, and initially it will be null only, that's fine. And before going to iterate a loop for this purchase order creation, again I will do the initialization of that variable as null. So maybe inside this stage, so here we are initializing the value, so let me initialize the purchase order number 2 to null. This is PO number, so its null is there already, so just go outside. That will take half hour more to finish this integration. I don't want to make this in different sessions, so that it will be difficult for like everyone to just to recall all this. So one where session will have all these recording, that will be easy for everyone to track. So now here you can see, once purchase order will be created, control will come here, and here we will update the purchase order number. To update the purchase order number to variable, we use assign again, and you know that we are using assign to update the variable values. So I'm just going to give endpoint name as, we are going to give endpoint name as update PO number underscore assign. And now here we have to select the variable message variable. So I will select the variable as PO number. And from where we will get the PO number? So PO number we will get from the SOAP endpoint. You can see the create purchase order response. So go to the SOAP, create purchase order SOAP, expand, expand. And how I am saying that, if you will see, once this will be executed successfully, in the response here, let me check the success case. So if I will run for the success one, I will show you here, we will get the purchase order number. So the same purchase order number we will map here. So you can see create purchase order response, we have result, and here you can see the order number. So I will map this order number here, right? So now this variable is going to store purchase order number, and if we have the purchase order number, if we, it means that we don't have error, right? So it means that the variable, can you please mute yourself? I'm just going that repeated voice. So now here we have one variable storing the error message. Now error message will be PO created successfully, because we got the purchase order number. And how we identify we got the purchase order number? We identify we got the purchase order number as our control move ahead of the endpoint to create the purchase order. So our control will come here only once this will be completed successfully, and it will return back the result. If it will not return back the result, it means that a status of this endpoint will not be 200, okay, and it will be something 500 or something. And in this case it will not move here, it will generate an exception. That exception will be handled by fault handler, and then control will suddenly from here it will move to this endpoint. So it will not execute this one, and the file, that variable will not be updated by purchase order number. So here we updated the variable error message, and you can see here even we initialize the purchase order number. So purchase order number is null in starting. If purchase order created successfully, the variable will be updated by the purchase order number and error message as successful created. If it got error, control will move aside, and here error message will be updated by the error, but purchase order variable is still null. That's fine. So outside this scope, right, you can see outside this scope what we have to do. So after this scope, here we just have to append the log message, append the log file, right? So again, writing the header, we added the stage file. Again we have to create one more stage file to append the message inside this for each loop for the each and every record. So here we just have to, outside this scope, we just have to add one more stage to update or to append the stage, append the log message. Just I'm going to add the stage file again. So with the help of a stage file only, we can create files, we can append the records to the same file. So I'm going to give the name as append log file underscore stage. So this stage file will append the file only when we will create the same file with the same name on the same directory. So that's why if you remember, I already copied the file name. So this was the file name which we given, that log underscore the file name coming from the for each loop. So this is the file name I am going to give here. That's fine. And after that, from where this will download, so again we will pass the same directory, this temp, here we downloaded the file. So now you can see the write is going to create a file with the same name on the same locations. And if we will add the tick here in the append, so instead of creating the file again, it will merge the record to the same file which is there in the same name on the directory. So go continue with this, already we discussed, right? So here we have to provide the schema. So we already have the schema, that's simple. And this is the same schema we used while creating the header of the file. I will show you that schema here. Let me select the schema file again. It's taking time to load due to that instance is bit slow here. You can see file loaded, and this is the same sample file, po error status sample file.csv. So I will give the name to the record r as for record set. I will make all columns as optional, and but obvious we have to as mandatory provide one column as mandatory. So just done, go continue, finish. And here inside that we have to provide the mapping, to the append. So what mapping we have to provide? We have to provide all the details coming from the for each loop with the message coming from these two variable which we use to assign. Just expand here, expand, and here you can see these two are the message. So status, the po number, right, this oracle po number. So this po number will get from the variable, that variable we already created, this po number. So let's map the variable, and what will be the status? So we already added the status to one variable. So I will map the variable here. So where is our variable error message? This one. So this error message will be mapped here. Even we can add the logic to add the status message as S for success, E for error, and only a status message can contain the full error message. But for that we need to go for accessibility functions, which we have not covered yet. So we'll go it later. So now we provided this three value, and now we have to provide this remaining value, and this remaining value will be same as the stage file which we read, right? You can see this is the same data file we are going to get from file server, and this is in our loop and loop of the stage file and loop on the stage file record. So let's find the stage file loop record. You can see stage records for each loop where. So I will expand this loop where, and you can see the all columns here. So I will map this purchase order purchase BU here, procurement BU, currency, description, PO lines, PO types, and the items, unit of measure, line quantity, item price, demand date, and shipped. And click on validates. Our file is will concrete and append each row each and every time when loop will iterate. If we will have 10 records, this append will be happen 10 times based on the for each loop we added on the file response. Let me validate. So here you can see. So here we, what is the error? Let's see. So maybe the error is in the file name only. It looks because we just provided the copy paste. Here you can see again. So instead of, let's see, providing the copy and paste, let me add. So I will add concat, and this is the log I just want to provide as hard coded, comma, the for each file name, right? Sorry. So here we have to provide the file name, and the file name is coming from the list file, right? So list file name. So where is list file? You can see this is the list file. Go expand. So instead of list file, we have the list file for each, right? Sorry, this is not the one list file for each here. You can see this one. Now and done. So this was the value which we copy paste. So I will remove this value here, right? So just go continue. It was just showing that error just because it's changed the schema. So every time when we are adding or providing the mapping, it's going to be changed the schema. That's why it was showing an error. So let me save. So after that, you can see error got removed. We have warning. So the warning is just related to making this integration as asynchronous. So it's saying that the error message warning related to that only. So now this stage append file will append the each and every record based on the loop. So here it's done, right? So now you can see we list the file. We downloaded the file. After downloading the file, we created the log header file. After that, we read the file. Inside the read file, we iterate the loop over the read records, and then we created a scope to invoke the SOAP web services to create purchase order here. And after creating the purchase order, or in case of error, we are updating the variable in both case, and that variable is going to hold the value, and that same variable we are mapping in the file, the log file we are going to create. So after that, what we want? After that, we want to put that log file at the file server, at a specific file server, right? So let me see. It's showing like that here due to instance issue. That is, it seems too much slow here right now. So let me refresh this page. So go back, right? I will refresh. It will again go and unlock, lock that one. So I'm just going to edit directly here. So now you can see in the stage we added all these things, all the logics append and everything is going to done. So let me end this scope. So after that, you can see when the file read and all the process will be completed, what we want to we want to put the log file at the archive error directory here, right? In this directory, and this directory we already have in the variable. So for providing the variable here, we require FTP connection, right? So here I will use FTP connection, and this is the FTP connection we created, this FTP, right? So I will select this one here. I will give the name as write log file underscore stage. Continue. And here we have to write the file. So I will select the write. Here we have to give the file name, which file name we want to give. So the file name we already having that we created. So I will not use that one. Go continue. And here we have to provide the, instead of file structure and all, we will provide the file reference. That file reference we are getting here, right? So go continue and finish. So where is the file? So this is the file, write log file. This is the file we want to send to server. So write log file stage will have the response. So this response we will map here. Just expand here. Sorry, where is the mapping for this? Yeah, sorry, this is the mapping here. And where we created the file or we updated the file, we created or updated the file inside the segment only, this one, right? Inside the segment here. But you can see this stage file is inside the loop. So inside the loop we will not able to find, outside the scope we will not able to find. But remember, we created here header only, and this is the same. So we will use this name. So what is the name? Write log header stage. So I will go, I will use the file name from write log header, even the reference from that too. So in the ICS file, file reference, so we have the right one. So find some write something. Where is the write log header? You can see response expand. You will be able to find the file reference here. In the response inside the ICS, you can see this is a file reference. And what is the file name? So again, file name we will get inside the properties. You can see this is the file name. This file name we have to provide. And here you can see where we have to write the file. So this is the directory we have to write the file, and that directory we are already having in the variable. So what is the variable name? The error directory. So this is the directory where we have to write the file. So that's done. We provided the sufficient details. Just go back. So using this endpoint, we will be able to write the file at server. And after writing the file, what we have to do? We have to archive the source file, right? The source file. So refresh the source file we have to archive to the archival directory. So for that again we have to add one more FTP endpoint. So I will use this FTP connection again. I will use move file, move source file underscore FTP. Go back, and here we have to select operation as move a file. And this move a file again will ask the directory where, directory path, which file we have to move, what is the file name, and what, where we have to move. All these are the FTP directory. You go back. I will provide all the details in the mapping only. Now, so which file we have to move? So we have to move the file for which we are iterating the loop. So file name we will get from the iteration. So just open the mapping. List file loop we have to check. So let me expand here. Here you can see the directory from where we have to pick the file to move. So source directory. So this directory again we will have in the list file for each loop. Expand. Here you can see the directory. And what is the file name? Again, will have the file name. And what is the target directory where we have to write? So we have to write at the archive directory that is here in the variable. So this is the archive directory, and this is the target file name, right? So what is the target file name? So the target file name is our source file name, and I will concat the archive inside that. So I will use concat. I will make that .archive. I will make the file name like that. So whatever will CSV file will be there, .csv.archive. That's done. Validate and go back. Save. So our integration is ready now to perform all these operations, right? So to perform all these operations, our integration is ready. So after completion of this one, right? So I just want, after completion of this, I want to send an email to user that integration completed, right? So from where we will send that email, you can see this is the loop iteration when we got the file. If we didn't get the file, here we have the notification. If we got the file, it will iterate the loop. After the loop, we want to send an email, right? So just hide the loop here. So this is the loop. This is the loop. And after the loop, I want to send email notifications. I will add the endpoint here. So name of that email notification. And here I will select the name as completion email notification. That's done. And here we have to select the to whom we have to send an email, that which already we have the variable which store this information. So I will select that one from there. You can see that integration instance is today too much slow. That's is to loading all these things slowly. So I will select the to email variable. So this is to email. I will map here, and this is from email. Again, we have variable for from email too. So you can see the variable. We have to go for subject. The subject we want to get the status. So I will use concat. The interface name. This is our interface name, and we'll give the name as this status integration status. I will give as success. Right? That's fine. And here in the body we have to just give the message, hi team, integration completed successfully, regards OIC support team. Now this is the message that everything is fine, and even if you want, you can attach the file which you created, that file, the log file, but log file right now it won't there. So let it be the same. Just click outside to save. Yeah, everything is done. Just I'm clicking outside. Sorry, come outside. So now our integration is ready. Let me save final. We have one error just because each and every integration required at least one business identifier. So we have to select the business identifier. Let's select date as a business identifier. Now our integration doesn't have any error. It's warning only. So let it be the same. You can say it's in configure. We can activate. So let me just give you a brief on this integration. So how this integration is working. So this integration will start using the scheduler. Here we added variables assign to create few defaults variable, and all the default variable we added lookup to get the value. So after getting the value from lookup, we store in the variable. After that, we added the FTP connection to list all the files present on the specific directory with the specific patterns name. After listing the file, we added switch to check the conditions. That if in the list response we got the file count greater than 0, it means we have file at file server. Then we are processing further. And if not, we are just sending the email notifications in otherwise case that we don't have file not found. So if we have the file, or we got the file count as greater than 0, then what we are going to do, so it can be possible that we can have a list of files 2 3 4 5. So based on that file response, that list file, we added the for each loop. So you can see the name as list file for each. So whatever number of file it will return, for all each and every file we added the for each loop. Inside the for each loop, first we downloaded the file for this loop variable. So suppose we have three files, so loop will iterate three times. So for each and every time, first time, second time, third time, we are getting the file name from here, and we are mapping the file name to download. So here we downloaded the file. After downloading the file, we just created one stage file. That using the stage file, we created the log file header, right? So as integration is going to return the log message as a log file. So this is the stage file where we created a log file with header message only. And in after that, whatever file we downloaded here, we are going to read this file here. So we added read in segment operations to read, because it can be that we have the large file. So that we added read in segment. Inside the read in segment block, we added the for each loop, because read in segment can have the multiple records. Obvious, for each and every bulk it will read 200 records, right? For example, it's had a 200 record, so this loop will iterate 200 times, and inside the loop we added assign actions to create default variable, to assign default message to variable, that error message as null and the PO number as null. And after that we added one scope to create purchase order. So here you can see in the scope, after this endpoint, right, in the scope, if purchase order created using this SOAP endpoint, we added the SOAP endpoint to create purchase order. If the purchase order is created successfully, we again updated the variable here with the purchase order number from response of this endpoint, and the message error message as purchase order created successfully. If in this point we got error, control will move inside the fault handler. In the fault handler, we updated the message as error message as a fault message, whatever will be the coming from the SOAP response. This response, it will capture in the fault handler. That fault handler message we assign to that error message variable, and we didn't do with purchase order variable because purchase order variable is already having the null value. After this scope of creating the purchase order, we added the message, the record, and the error status message to the stage file, same stage file we created as a header here, right here in the same. And we use append operation so that each and every iteration say record will be merged to this stage file. And once this loop iteration will over, this segment of the read will be over, control will move outside, and whatever file we created here, we are writing the same file to file server in error directory. After that source file, we are going to move from source directory to target directory to the archive directory. And after that, we add a notification to inform user that integration got completed successfully. This is the complete flow we developed from in last 3 hours in today's session. Now I'm going to save the integration, and I hope this integration will work perfectly fine because we try to do all these things which we can cover. And I'm just going to activate this integration. And yeah, integration got activated. So let me see the prerequisite. So prerequisite should be that file should be there at file server with the same naming convention. That's true. File is there at file server and everything is fine. Just I'm going to run this integration. Click on run, and just I'm going to hit this run button. So once we will click on this run button, integration will start and will do processing of all the steps which include as we added in our integrations. So let's wait for completing of the integrations. If we will not have any error, this integration will perform all these activities which we added. So yeah, it will take time. You can see for each list file iterated because it got one file. So let's iterate the loop over the file, and here you can see we got error message, write log file status. Yeah, it means that it's processing the records and that records got error. You can see we got error here. That's perfectly fine, it will work, no issues. And after that, write log file state. That's fine. Let's process this integrations further. Here you can see we invoke the write log file. In the log file we have the message, so let me see what log file is saying in the message. So it's message, here you can see in the log file it's just appended, that's why it's not showing here. This is the right log file. This is the log file just placed over the file server. That's fine. And list file, this is the iteration. And inside the one iteration, you can see invoke download file downloaded. And you can see in the segment sequence, we added the segment one. Inside the segment, we will have the loop. Let's see. Segment one. Inside the segment one, here you can see read in segment, right? So we have 7 iterations. So let's confirm how many records were there in our file. So in our file there were total 7 records. So loop iterated 7 times. That perfectly fine. And for that iteration, you can see the first iteration create purchase order. It's invoke that create purchase order soap, that message, that's fine. And let's see, these all are the iteration, right? The invoke purchase order iteration. So this iteration will have the 7 times, and it seems that every time it's got error. What is the error message? Okay, the error message you can see that the incorrect date format. So date format is this one, expected hyphen, right? In the file we have the slash. You can see in the file we have the slash, but it's expecting hyphen here. You can see we used hyphen. So let's see the log message. That's our integration is working perfectly fine in this case. Let's refresh. So let me move to that error log. Let's see that what is the log message here. Due to server issues, even we are not able to see the log file here. Let me refresh again. Let's see. Go back. Purchase order. Okay, just for reference, let me delete this file and let me update the syntax here. So instead of that, let me pass the hyphen here. So here, let me open this file in Notepad. So if we will save here, it will again create problem. So create PO. This is our sample file. Let me open this sample file here in the Notepad. So this is the date. So let me pass the hyphen here. By default, when we are opening in the Excel, it's changing the format. So that's why I'm opening the file here in the Notepad plus plus. We will check that why that file is not generated or that moved to archive folder. But let's run the integration first. So now we updated the file. So in the file, let me add one more record just for brief so that we can see that this time we have 8 records. And in the records, let me have the same that message as 8. Right. So this is the total 8 records there. Let me go to the integration. So this is our file. So this file I'm going to pass here again in the same source directory, and this time I'm just going to change the name as 02. That's done. We move to the integration. Let me run this integration again, right? So I'm just going to run this integration again. Click on run. I'm just waiting for completion of this integration. So once this integration will be completed, till now let me have check the email, that do we receive email or not, the completion of this one. So the completion email we didn't receive yet. Let me see that it's completed. So it got error. It's generating error, but obviously we added the scope, so error will be handled in the scope only. So no issue. Here you can see we have the list file. Inside that we have only one file. That's why there is one iteration. After the iteration, we added the write log file. So that's why here we have the log file endpoint. Why we have error in the write log file? Unable to send file to server. Please ensure specify remote output directory has write permission. Output file name has not exceeded the maximum character, or remote file server has enough space. So this integration is not able to write. So is it that due to file name? What is the file name? So this is the file name. Let me see that any file with this name can be possible or not. Let me create a duplicate of this. Just confirming but passing here that the file name can have this much of character or not. So yeah, it's possible that file name can have this character. I'm just confirming the directory. So this is the directory. I hope this is the correct directory, but I don't know why this is getting error out. Yeah, this is the correct directory. Okay, due to that one only, it's not able to create. Yeah, it's this user having the right access to create. If I will create, okay. Okay, let's see. First, check the integration. So here you can see. Let's check again. So first iteration is fine. After that, we didn't get an email notification just because we got error while writing the file. That's why after that, control didn't move further. Right. So here you can see one iteration of the stage segment, one segment. So in this segment, it's iterated 8 times. For each and every iteration, if you will see the iteration 1 successfully expand, here you can see the create PO invoked and it's got successfully completed, right? Create purchase order soap. If we will expand this create purchase order soap, purchase order got created. You can see this is the purchase order number US16. Let me check that purchase order created or not. So due to that write access, it's not able to write the file at file server. So we will add email notifications to send the file at email instead of writing that file server. And later we will just update the user, just providing the access so that you can see. So let me search that purchase order number here, and we'll see that our integration is able to create purchase order or not. So go to tasks, go to manage orders, and search the purchase order number. So this is our order number and search. Here you can see purchase order created, and what is the description of purchase order? You can see the description of purchase order is the same as we passed in the data file. You can see in the data file we given the purchase order number as this PO is created by SOAP UI first record. Here you can see this PO is created by SOAP UI first record. It means that we are successfully able to create purchase order. Here you can see this is the line, the same line details we given there. You can see all this information are there. Right? What is the requested delivery date? 25/11/2024. If you will see the records, you can see 25/11/2024. What is the quantity? Stain item is 200. Same you can see quantity 10. Base price is 200. So everything is same that we provided. So using this OIC, we are able to create orders. So this is the first iteration that purchase order got created. Let's go for second iteration. This is the second iteration. In the second iteration also, it's purchase order created. You can see the create purchase order, expand this one. And this is the response of this create purchase order. You can see the purchase order number 035. So go done and search the 035. Search. You can see the PO purchase order created successfully. Now go for the error case. So where is the error? So you can see the third iteration is fine. Fourth iteration having the error. And what is the error message? If you will expand, you can see create purchase order. And error message you can see you must provide value for the line description attribute. This is the same error message if you remember when we are getting within providing the item number. And this error message is for which case? If you will go to the message, you can see this is the response request what we are passing here. The request, if you will see the line, what is the description, you can see the PO, the purchase order created for line third records, right? Third record. If you will go to the third record, you can see the third record having the details, this one, right? This one, the code is there. Here you can see unit code is changed from ZZU by lookup. All these values coming here, right? So this is the value we provided in the mapping only. Now you can see, let's solve the issues first for that write log message. So let's see, instead of write log, even we can add the same file over the email. so that our integration won't stop to sending the log messages. Even if it's not able to write the file, it will be able to send that email notification, right? Just go edit this integration first. Let's see that the write operations. So here is the writes. Let's see that do we have permissions option or not. Go continue. Write log file. Write operations. Append. No, that's fine. Continue. Now these two we are provided in the mapping. We want to configure no. That's why we provided all these things. No, we don't have. So I will check that why we are getting that error. So as even we have the permissions to write the file, right? So if you will go to the mapping here, write stage, just have a cross check. But we got to know, right, all these operations and all how it's working. So this is the file we are going to write at file server, and where we want to write. So we want to write at this directory. This directory is the error directory. This is correct directory, and this is the file name we want to write. So that's so let's provide the file name. That's too maybe too long. Let me provide the name as log file 01.csv. That's done. And the file reference we given as a write header log, right? That log header. And here we are sending notification outside this scope only. So instead of outside the scope, let's move these notifications to inside the scope. So before writing the because writing the log, because we are getting error here. So before getting that error, I want to send that email, right? Email notification. So in that we just have to attach the file log file attachment, right? So just expand here, go to the attachment, select the file. So write header, you can say log header, expand. This is the file reference we want to share. Just come outside. That's done. Save. Even let me just change the file name here too while moving to the file server. Maybe due to file name we are getting error. That name is going to be long. The file name, target file name is there. So the target file name I'm just going to give name as, but it should not be the case. File 01.archive. That's fine. Go back. I'm just going to activate this integration first, and then we will run this integration. So as everything is working as expected, just accept that writing the file at file server, so that even we can check that issues. But as of now, our integration is working fine, getting the file from file server. It's able to create the purchase order in Oracle Fusion. So that was the case. We'll solve that one. We'll check. So now we are going to run again. So again it will read the file. So as purchase order number is automatically generated, that's why we are not going to be worried about the file, the purchase order number, it will create duplicate order or not. So yes, the it will create multiple purchase order with the same lines as we are processing the same file again and again, right? So yeah, it's running. Let me check. So this for each getting error, and that error is going to be handled in the for each itself as we added the scope. So that is perfectly fine. You can see in the segment we have the iteration, and inside that we will have total 8 iteration. You can see 6 till now, 6 executed. If I will refresh again, again we have the error while writing the file. So it means that the access issues only. If you will see the error message, sorry, we are getting error while writing the file, a stage file only. A specific remote output directory has write permission, output file name exceeded, and the remote file system has enough space. So if we will see, we are getting while writing the log file only, that stage only, right? So let me go just cross check again. I just updated the file server file. That was not the case. So here where we are writing the file. Here we are writing this log file here. So let me see that the details where we provided. So this is the directory same. The file name is the same file name we used while creating the file. That's perfectly fine. Our file name is that log underscore file name. That file name is fine. Go next. That everything is fine here. And in the mapping, we just provided the details. Let me check. Keep this card. Let's see this time it's working or not. By the way, we got email notification. That email notification having the file. Here you can see integration completed successfully. If we will download the file from here, let's see that what message this file is going to contain. You can see this is just going to store the value that orders, and here you can see this is the purchase order number just created by the integration. So these all are the purchase order number we got, and these are the PO created successfully. The purchase of these all purchase order created successfully. That's fine. But in this two error case, we don't have that error message here. So even we have to debug this error part too, why this is not having the error message. So we can just have a look on that too. But let's first check that why we are having the right error. So just I updated the endpoint, that endpoint to just where we just pass the hash slash in case of file name pattern. So let's see that that is working or not. Then we will move to that part. So go to integration first. Let me unlock this integration. So what I check here while writing the file, right? This here we are getting error. So I just have changed this file name pattern to a star. Earlier it was there as slash. So let me check that this is going to solve our purpose or not. Because here we will provide these two value in the mapping only, right? So this should not create a problem this time. But let's see. So that is done. We already added notifications to write send email same to file. That's working fine. Just have a look on that too, that in error case why it's not generating the file. So for example, this is the scope. So here we got error. So once we will got error, control will come here in this fault handler. In the fault handler, it will update the fault message to the variable, and then outside the create PO scope, outside this scope, we are appending this log message to the file. So this time we have that error message or not. Let's see. We have that error message too. The same variable we map for that. Let's see that is updating or not. Yeah, that's the message. Status message having the var error message. That's fine. Let's see here this the same variable we are updating or not. So instead that this is the one. Just checking one of the functions. Node string somewhere we had. So it will go. So create PO scope. Where is this fault? Let me provide the reason instead of details. Or if we will go for details, reason. Just click outside. Let's see this time it's working or not. We are going to activate this integration, debug, and that let's wait for the completion of this integrations. Let me confirm that do we have the file at file server or not. So yes, we have the file at file server. Integration is just got activated. I'm going to run this integration. Run and submit. So it will process the all object, all the element we added in integration. So just wait for completion of this integration. So this loop, for each loop is iterating for the file which we receive from file server. After this inside the iteration, there will be segment of a stage file, and in the segment of a stage file we have the scope to read the file to just write invoke the soap web services to create purchase order. So here you can see it will not load all the messages in the all the log messages in the same time. So just for a while we just have to look back and see. So you can see this time integration got completed successfully. So it was just the error related to the endpoint which we added, that endpoint having the incorrect syntax we given as a file name pattern. So now it's got completed successfully. File moved from source directory. Here you can see the we rated the log file at server. Go to the file server. Just refresh here. So once we refresh, file got removed here. So where this file went? This file went into the archive folders. If you will open in the archive folder, we will be able to see the file. So we given the file name as file01.archive. When we got error, we just change the file names. Later you go and change the file name too. That's fine. So we have successfully archived the file. Go to the error file, error folder. In the error folder also we will have the file, right? So here we write the file. Where we write the file, let's see. So where we have the file, go to the right file here. In the right log stage, this is a we given the by mistake name stage, but it was the FTP connection here where we write the file. So this is the file reference, and we write the file here in this error directory. And what is the file name? That log file 01.csv, right? So let's see that why this file is not there in the file server. This is the same directory, and even it's created the file here. You can see the true status is true. Yeah, there can be issues, let it be. So now you can see our integration is working fine. File got placed here, and integration completed successfully just by sending the notifications to. If you will go to the email, you can see we got email notification, and again in the email notification we have the same. We have the CSV file which contain all the informations, all the message related to the records which we process. And this log file, if you will download, you will be able to find all the information related to the log file. Here you can see the two record having invalid value. That's why it didn't created the purchase order. You can see the Oracle purchase order number is null here. And what is the error message behind this null? So you can see status is null, and you can see error message. So if you will copy this message here, if you will go back to node, let me open the node. And what is the error message we are getting? In the file error message we are getting that provide at least value for line description attribute. You can see this is the more message, you must provide a value. And what is the another message for the second record? So if I will copy here, go back, and you can see the second message value is you must provide a value for ship to location attribute, right? You can see. So now even you can say this message is not fine, right? It's not looking good. So you can use substring functions, right? Substring before after to terminate all this additional string, and you can just display this message only in your integrations. So yes, we can do all these things by providing in the mapping. So thank you so much everyone for joining. It's been too long session, and yeah, it's like really nice. So thank you so much again for joining. Let's meet in next session.